Most people know the famous Bible stories David and Goliath, Noah's Ark, the birth of Jesus, the Red Sea. But beneath those familiar layers lie teachings that are rarely discussed, often forgotten, and sometimes completely unknown to modern believers. These truths aren't hidden because they re-secret, they re-hidden because few people slow down to look for them. Yet they reveal a deeper world of spiritual discipline, ancient symbolism, and surprising power that shaped the early church. Today, we're re-exploring some of the most intriguing and little-known biblical teachings that challenge the way we read Scripture, how we understand God, and how we live our daily spiritual lives. 1. The Bible teaches about a law of spiritual forgetfulness. In Deuteronomy 8, God warns Israel that the greatest danger to their faith is not war, famine, or demonic attack kits prosperity. Success causes forgetfulness. Strength causes spiritual drift. Comfort creates distance from God far faster than hardship ever could. This theme appears again and again. God tells His people, "When you have eaten and are full, beware lest you forget the Lord." Deuteronomy 8:10. The early church understood this as a spiritual law. Human beings naturally forget God unless they actively remind themselves of Him. This is why Israel had feasts, altars, laws, proverbs, tassels on garments, and songs of remembrance. These weren't random religious traditions, they were designed as memory anchors. Modern Christianity focuses heavily on learning the Bible, but rarely on remembering it. The early believers, however, knew that memory was a weapon. Forgetting God wasn't an accident, it was predictable, guaranteed, and deadly. This is why Jesus' final instruction during the Last Supper wasn't about miracles or preaching. It was, "Do this in remembrance of me." A simple practice of remembrance was so powerful that Jesus built an entire sacrament around it. 2. The Bible mentions books, not included in the Bible. Most Christians never learn that the Bible directly references several other writings that are not part of the biblical canon. These books are not lost Gnostic Gospels or forbidden texts. They were historical records used by prophets, kings, and scribes. Examples include the Book of the Wars of the Lord, Numbers 21-14, the Book of Jasher, Joshua 10:13, 2 Samuel 1:18, the Book of the Acts of Solomon, 1 Kings 11:41, the Chronicles of Samuel, the seer, the Book of Nathan, the prophet, the Book of Gad, the seer, the prophecy of Ahijah, the Shilonite, the visions of Iddo, the seer. These weren't lost scriptures. They were historical documents that God's people used alongside Scripture. The surprising truth is this: the Bible doesn't contain everything that was ever written about God, contains everything God intended for salvation and spiritual life. The Bible openly acknowledges the existence of a broader body of literature, proving that faith existed in a rich historical and cultural environment. This challenges the idea that the biblical world was small or isolated. Instead, it was full of archives, records, poetry, and documentation. People who think Scripture appeared out of thin air miss that it stands atop thousands of years of spiritual history. 3. The early church practiced intentional silence. Modern Christianity talks about prayer, worship, singing, and speaking, but rarely silence. Yet Scripture mentions silence more than 50 times as a spiritual discipline. Even more surprising, silence appears during the most intense spiritual moments. In Revelation 8:1, heaven becomes silent for half an hour before God's judgment unfolds. Silence was a sign of expectation, reverence, and spiritual alignment. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still, and know that I am God." This is not poetic, it is instructional. The early church and ancient Israelites practiced rhythms of silence to strengthen focus and spiritual hearing. Early rabbis taught that the mind cannot hear God if it is filled with noise. Silence wasn't emptiness was preparation. Today, many believers struggle because their spiritual life is loud, rushed, and mentally crowded. Silence is one of the most powerful biblical disciplines, yet it is almost entirely forgotten. 4. The Bible teaches a hidden rule of divine timing. We often hear that God's timing is perfect. But few people know that Scripture describes an actual structure behind God's timing. Patterns repeat. Joseph waited 13 years. Moses waited 40 years. David waited 15 years. Paul waited 14 years. Abraham waited 25 years. These are not random delays. They follow a rhythm of preparation, breaking, equipping, and positioning. Early Jewish teaching breaks this down as season of planting, God gives the promise. Season of darkness, the promise seems dead. Season of testing character is reshaped. Season of formation, skills are developed. Season of revealing, the promise manifests. This is the pattern Jesus references when he says, "Unless a seed falls into the ground and dies." This rhythm is found throughout Scripture, showing that waiting is not passive, it's transformative. 5. God asked Israel to build physical reminders because the human heart wanders in Joshua 4. The Israelites set up 12 stones taken from the Jordan River. They weren't decorations, they were conversation starters. God instructed that when future generations saw the stones and asked about them, parents would retell the miracle. The early believers used stacked stones, written scrolls, engraved items. Marked doorposts, prayer shawls, phylacteries, memorial altars, these physical reminders served a spiritual purpose, to interrupt forgetfulness and ignite gratitude. Modern believers rarely build visible reminders of God's past faithfulness. And as a result, spiritual drift becomes normal. The Bible shows that faith was never meant to exist only in the mind. It was meant to be physically anchored in daily life. 6. Biblical names are hidden prophecies. Many Christians overlook the fact that biblical names aren't just labels, they carry meanings that reveal destinies, warnings, or divine messages. Examples: Abraham, father of many, Isaac. He laughs. Jacob, supplanter, later transformed into Israel, meaning God fights. Malang and Chilion, sickness and wasting away, foreshadowing their early deaths. Solomon, peace, signaling a peaceful reign. Jesus, Yeshua, God saves in Genesis 5. The genealogy from Adam to Noah forms a hidden prophecy. When you combine the name meanings, they read, "Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down teaching. His death shall bring the despairing comfort." This hidden message foreshadows Christ thousands of years before his birth. The early church studied names carefully because they believed names reflected God's intention. Modern Christians often read past these layers without realizing they're skipping over entire spiritual revelations. 7. The Bible teaches that wisdom is a protective shield. Many people think wisdom makes life easier, but Scripture says something deeper. Wisdom protects you from unseen dangers you didn't even know existed. Proverbs 4 describes wisdom as a shield, a guide, a crown, a guardian, a preserver. A path straightener. Wisdom keeps you out of battles you never had to fight. It prevents friendships that would have destroyed you, decisions that would have delayed your destiny, and temptations that would have broken you. Modern Christianity emphasizes miracles, but the early church emphasized wisdom. Why? Because miracles deliver you from trouble, while wisdom prevents trouble from reaching you. 8. The Bible reveals that God speaks in patterns. Most people wait for a supernatural voice. But Scripture shows that God often speaks through patterns. Repeated verses, recurring dreams, repetition of events, similar warnings through different people, emotional restlessness. That won't go away, the same message appearing in different environments. The prophets recognized patterns as divine fingerprints. Jesus taught in patterns. Paul wrote in patterns. Revelation is entirely patterns. Most modern believers miss God's voice not because he is silent, but because they ignore patterns. 9. The Bible emphasizes generational vision. One of the most forgotten ideas in Scripture is that God thinks in generations, not years. Abraham received promises he would never personally see. David prepared resources for a temple Solomon would build. Joseph spoke prophetically about the Exodus long before it happened. The early church lived with a worldview where faith extended beyond their lifetime. Today, most believers think in days or months, but the Bible teaches, you are part of a spiritual relay. You stand on faith that came before you, and someone in the future will stand on yours. 10. The Bible contains layers of meaning. Not just one. Jewish scholars taught 4 layers of Scripture: literal meaning, hinted meaning, deep meaning, mystery meaning. Jesus used these layers constantly. Paul interpreted Old Testament stories symbolically. Revelation is written entirely in layers. Many believers read the Bible at the surface level, unaware that the same verse can speak differently to different seasons, different hearts, and different levels of maturity. Scripture is not a single note book, it's a symphony.